And I think you also made a very interesting observation why state governments wouldn't want to select their own officers. The reason why states are not bothered to select their own officers is because UPSC has been doing a fantastic job. But if union government is going to pressurize UPSC selected IAS officer, then states can have their own exam and they can get the same talent. Let's say TN will say 70% officers would be from TN held some exam, and then the best of the best in TN would write this exam, and TN would have his own service, same in Andhra Pradesh, same in Telangana, same for every state. I could see the Honorable MP raising his hand, sir, please.
No, mine was only to greet Mr. Poornalingam. I know him, but I was not very sure whether it's the same person. He has been my senior in the Ministry of Commerce in Sircar, 1980s end. Or
yeah, I was there.
I was wondering with the same person.
Now that you have become MP, you have forgotten me.
So I am MP for absolutely no fault of mine. No fault of mine.
I know that.
Picked up by this lady and said, you have to be MP. But post-retirement, nobody gives you such offers. So I accepted. Let's see how long.
You were in our group. You were a very worthy member of the constitutional group.
So I very nice to see you, sir. Very nice to see you.
Thank you.
And I have one statistics. When you talk of they say that the official release says that in just 1 minute. I got this information that in 2009, the number of persons or from the IAS on central deputation, 2009 was 329. And so in 2019, it could have been around 400. Because we have increased our cadre intake. But it's not sufficient, but say around 380 or 400. So against 400, the actual number in 2019 is 210, half. So that gives you an indication of what Mr. Poornalingam just said, that nobody wants to go and work. My last part of the tenure, which was unfortunately under this regime and I resigned, was a very traumatic period. It's not the same government of India that had gone in the late 80s, mid 80s and late 80s. It's not the same government of India. Joint secretaries and others don't have the same working conditions. Why on earth should one go?
I will not go to government of India under these conditions. I will not
under these conditions.
So
why should he go? I went because I was kicked out by the state. I went out because my regime made life miserable.
The problem lies elsewhere.
So these are things that, but we have to put our foot down at whichever level. There's no politics involved. I mean, in Parliament, of course, we'll raise it. It's not a question of opposition versus proposition because everybody is hurt. So the messaging should get across this thing. And Mr. Modi has, as usual, taken a very subtle issue that will not be understood by the masses, and he can drive his sword through in his usual style. So the way to take him on is to just resist, as had happened in Alappan's case. We put our foot down. We said, you can go to hell. The case is still going on where Alappan is concerned. When he told me that he had been posted on the last day of his service career, it's so ludicrous. I wrote an article by government by petulance. Petulance, that's all. It's just petulance, that's all.
The same petulance has driven these rules. I
didn't
want to use the word.
Same petulance. We just stand up to the bully. We have, in the streets where we grew up, in the parks where we played, there were bullies like this, and you just stand up to them and see, and then their behavior changes. That's all. So that is my submission. Please go on.
I just want to quote what our Chief Minister has written. I found out in the papers. It is very easy. It's very difficult to build a house, but easy to demolish it in one day.
Yes.
That is what is happening. We have built it up for 70 years. Right or wrong, with a lot of problems, etc. It is still respected. It is still delivering. You are going to demolish it. Is my inner
Yes,
feeling. I am very sad about it. That's all.
it's Tamil Nadu and Bengal and Kerala and Maharashtra and hopefully Punjab and Delhi. If you just put your foot down, and of course, there Rajasthan has already said no. Bihar has said no. Bihar is dithering, but Jharkhand has said no. So if we just 4-5 major states, we just put your foot down and say just go to hell, GTH in short. Let's see what you do. Let's see what you do. I've dealt with him. I'm the only unfortunate person in this whole group who's worked. He would like to say I worked under him. I worked for a constitutional authority, so I said I worked with him. That's it. And not pleasant memories. So please go on.
Sir, I have my fellow executive coordinator Pugul Gandhi and also another friend, former readers editor of The Hindu. They both want to make an observation. And before that, I can see the honorable minister is also there. Sir, do you want to make any comments?
No, I just want to say that it has been very enlightening. I think, both the experiences of all three gentlemen, though they have been varying in terms of extent of time in the state and the nature of their roles at the union level, they have all been enlightening. And the two things that stand out starkly for me is the point Mr. Poornalingam made about who would want to go under these conditions, which was immediately backed up by the statistic that the Honorable MP stated, which shows that despite the overall scale of the cadre increasing, the number of people on deputation has fallen by half. So, this is the crux of the matter. You can take a horse to water, you cannot make it drink. So I think, the union would be well advised to make it more conducive and more attractive and a more fruitful place to work with a pleasant environment rather than try to beat with a stick, even assuming there was no ulterior motive, which clearly there is in this case. Even assuming there wasn't an ulterior motive, then this is not the way to resolve the problem, which clearly they have a problem. But as in many other cases, it's a self-inflicted problem. You create a toxic work environment or a less than ideal work environment and people don't want to come. But I apologize, as enlightening as the discussion is, I had some other commitments I have to run. But I'm very grateful to all the panelists. It was definitely enlightening to me. I'm sure to all those who dialed in, and encouraging to hear, of course, the MP's suggestion. I think we are certainly on the same page as far as that is concerned. And I look forward to hearing from them again at another event, and thank them again for attending. Thank you.
Thank you. So Pugul, so you could go ahead and speak.
Thank you, Dharani. Thanks to all the panelists for such a wonderful discussion. At the outset, it seems that it is an attempt by the union government to have a larger share in the human resource pool, that is the civil servants. However, there seemed to be a larger and dangerous attempt to control the country. Here I endorse the words of our finance minister, Dr. PTR. That is, this is an attempt, it's a megalomaniac attempt to take control, which is nothing but a serious attempt to destroy the federal character and convert the country into a single administrative unit. When we see the history, conflict between union and states is not new in any country which has a federal character. India is also not an exception to it. The conflict existed since independence, even when the states are reorganized on the basis of languages, and language indicates the culture and civilization of a particular population. However, there has been a serious trend in the erosion of state rights and autonomy ever since BJP came into power in the union. Federalism traditionally signifies the independence of the union and the state governments of a country in their own spheres. Different nations, states follow different types of federalism. While the US follows a strict separation of powers between the federal and the state governments, European Union is another example where nation states join together without ceding or compromising on their sovereignty to form a kind of supranational structure or a confederation of nation states. Whereas India follows a quasi-federal structure with powers divided between the union and the states, and same as common ground for the union or the states to legislate, with union having predominance over the state decisions. As far as India is concerned, Already, the nature of the Indian constitution itself is tilted towards the rights and powers of the union, which was vehemently taken up by our leaders like late Chief Minister C. N. Annadurai, Dr. Kalaignar, former Union Minister Munsuri Maran, to assert the state rights and state autonomy, which has yielded substantial results. But the recent proposal of the Union government to amend the Rule 6 of the Cadre Rules seems to be a strikingly contra note. Our Finance Minister rightly pointed out, as far as the internal transfers are concerned, it is a matter of routine administrative work. But deputation is different. Here, what is happening is the recent proposed amendments seems to be a threat to this heterogeneous structure. If union government is empowered to call any civil servant to the union service in the name of deputation, without no objection from the state, civil servants will be put to severe threat, as they may be pulled out at any time if they fail to comply with the dictates of the union. Here, one example I would like to point out, this is not only happening with respect to the civil service, currently it is happening with respect to the civil servants. Even our judiciary is a classic example. We are seeing this erosion of autonomy in judiciary, even though our constitution advocates for separation of power among the institutions and ensures judicial independence through a higher service security. That is, a judge can be removed by an impeachment in parliament. However, the same protection is not available to transfer a judge from one state to another. A judge of a high court can be transferred by the collegium, and in most of the cases, the ruling party in the center influences the decision. We have witnessed many judges, even in Madras High Court, being transferred to many other high courts for failing to fall in line with union dictates. This is actually lesser threat as compared to the present proposal to remove a civil servant from the state cadre, as civil servants doesn't enjoy the service security which a judge enjoys. So my only point is state and state's political leadership should see through this evil design and oppose it collectively, so that not only the federal nature of the country can be maintained, but also the identity of the population can be preserved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pugal sir. Next, I would invite A.S. Paneerselvam to go ahead with his views. So you have to unmute. So you have to unmute yourself.
I think I unmuted. The key question is, when the first Home Minister of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, addressed the first batch of IAS officers in 1947, he laid out certain home rules. And when we think about changing these terms of references for the All India Services officers, we thought that there'll be some references to those core values or the terms of references which Sardar Patel spelled out. And one of the key questions is giving a functional autonomy for the administrators. That was the central theme of his address. In fact, Mr. Patel puts out 5 core values, and they were impartiality and incorruptibility, which was 1. 2 was integrity. 3 was work without any expectation of extraneous rewards. And this is central, work without any expectation of extraneous rewards. 4 is sovereignty. That becomes very, very important because that was the time when India-Pakistan's partition happened. Therefore, sovereignty becomes important at that point of time. But now sovereignty is a far more settled issue. And the 5th is the spirit of service. When we are looking at the recent notification from the union government to the chief secretaries, there is not a single reference to these core values, which means the idea is not about the values, it's not about delivery systems. The idea is about control. Idea is to have a single structure where executive seems to be the only thing which wields power. Judiciary has to be subservient. Administrative mechanism has to be subservient, media has to be subservient, parliament has to be subservient, because what is happening in the parliament is also a bit disturbing, which Mr. Jawhar Sircar might be able to explain, because most of these bills are not even discussed in any of the committees. They have been brought in and they are implemented immediately, which means the parliament is no longer a place for debate and dissent. Parliament has been a place where ill thought out ideas have been implemented in extraordinary speed. At one level, what we are witnessing is ill thought out ideas being implemented at an extraordinary speed. At another level, the core values of Indian administrative service, as articulated by Sardar Patel, is not even being touched by the union government. How do we look at this glaring omission by the union government? That's my question, actually.
So can you, Jawhar Sircar, so you could go ahead.
On Parliament, Mr. Palanivelu is completely right. The new strategy that I have seen in the few sessions that I have attended is to first create a controversy ahead of time. Like I'll give an example, like in the winter session in the Rajya Sabha, the first thing they did was to pick up an offense that was pick up an agitation that had happened in the last session. And though the rules don't allow you to pull on from one session to the other, they invoked that and suspended 12 members, choosing the party so that no major party was left out. The Congress was hit, the TMC was hit, the DMK was hit, the Samajwadi Party was hit. So they did it almost across the table. Though, very funnily enough, the main person who actually stood up on a chair belongs to one of the North Indian states where elections are happening. He was not indicted because that would have made him a bit of a martyr, made him a big hero. Anyway, the first day it was announced, and now no party worth having any iota of self-respect would accept an unfair indictment and a punishment which pained one of his prominent members or even the leader of the party, as happened in the case of the CPIM, was expelled, was suspended from the entire house for the entire session, that whole month, a little more. So it's not possible. So if you trigger an incident like that, there'll be agitations in Parliament and outside Parliament. Now that you have ensured that there are agitations within Parliament and outside, all you need to do is to suddenly decide to pass the bill in that afternoon. And that afternoon, you start your bills and the opposition keeps protesting. The chairman puts his ruling in favor of the government, as always. And therefore, the opposition is left with either two options, either to go on protesting and agitating and shouting slogans, in which case they pass the bills amidst the slogans. Or the opposition walks out, so they will pass the bill even faster, even quicker. Some important bills have been passed through after 7 minutes of debate. One took 9 minutes of debate. 9 minutes, 10 minutes of debate, that's what's happening. This is all recorded. Number two, a large section of the bills to which MPs have objections are sent to the select committee or to the standing committee of Parliament, anyway to the parliamentary committee. This could go as high as 60-70% of the bills during Mr. Manmohan Singh, during the UPA regime, let us say the second phase. Even in the first phase, it was pretty high. In this government, this percentage of bills that are referred to all party committees has come down drastically. So if you make a blunder, like say demonetization, which was without consultation of the House, if you make a blunder, you suffer. The nation suffers. Everybody bleeds. That's all. That's what's going on. Unfortunately, what we have been telling the BJP members is first they are members of Parliament, they are members who represent the nation and then the party. But they are not in the position to sort of come round to what we call the overall sense of the nation. So they are behaving partisanly. And there are some parties that are more interesting. They are mentioned as opposition parties. They sit with the opposition, but actually support the government in formal and informal alliance. You know, Rajya Sabha is more troublesome to this government because they don't have a majority. They have only 94 out of 240 seats, 235 to 40, the vacancies keep coming up. So 94 seats, so they need the support of these people. I think they need the support of these people. And the only way to get through to Rajya Sabha is to engineer a problem, then await expected reactions, then take advantage of the expected agitations, allow it for some time, and then pass your bills with the agitation going on, or when the members have undertaken a walkout. That's it. That's a strategy. That's a strategy. And it goes on shamelessly with the Godi media, as it's known in North India, Godi media, that's laptop media, that keeps on supporting, saying, oh my God, what a terrible thing has happened. MPs don't know how to behave. They are shouting. They are wasting productive time as if this is an assembly line production. I mean, that all sorts of this narrative is fed into the media. Television would not like to show anything other than turbulent scenes to make you agitated, and that's how it goes on. That's a narrative. Thank you.
So thank you so much. So there are 3 questions from the viewers. I think those are very all the questions are similar, similar to administrative reforms for the IAS. So I'll ask Mr. Poornalingam sir to go first, and all of you could say have an opinion on it. The first is from Mr. I think just a second, from Jnana Sankar. So he says that what is the relevance of IAS? How does a history, political science major become an expert in any specialist department? But I think, anyways, in the last 10 years, according to data, I think it's 90% engineers who are becoming. And I also think, you don't, when it comes to administration, what you study is not important. But what he says is, why cannot we get experts and professionals? And why do we still? And then going below, there's one more question, which is from Sarav. He asks, since the panelists have also worked in professional capacities across the world, what is it we could learn from United States and European Union in recruiting and retaining the best talent? And so there's one more question from Pradeep Joseph, who talks about what stops state governments from creating their own civil service, like Tamil Nadu civil service, etc., etc.
You want me to answer?
Yes, sir, please.
Very briefly, I would say, you see, it's a management cadre, like IAM. Anybody can become a manager. Usually, generalist versus specialist debate was going on for a very long time. I have observed the state government, and I worked in electricity board, I worked in corporation. I've seen the talent available in Tamil Nadu very well. You see, what counts for the IAS officer is the selection methodology. Only 100 people in the country are selected. Therefore, their average level of uptake, intelligence, etc., in the direct recruited IAS officers is very high. They are expected to have a high level of integrity and honesty. That is there. To start with, it is very much there for at least 10 years. I observed it. And therefore, with this ability, if they are given a little bit of training on management, they will manage well. If you take any company, fellows move from cigarettes to automobile. This cross-sectional movement of managers is very much there. I would like to think Indian Administrative Services as a managerial service where the policies are framed and delivered. And there are a lot of, as somebody said, you should know all these terms. I don't disagree at all that they can be educated. By and large, I think they have done very well. And the service gets independence because it's an all India service. And at least in Tamil Nadu, we are very well respected and treated very well. And people don't play roughshod over us easily. And that independence is being damaged in this amendment. That independence is very essential. I can tell a minister very bravely saying that is not correct. This should not be done. I've done it. And the minister has not taken it as a miss. But I think the health director or DME or DPH, for example, or a chief engineer, for example, they somehow do not have that independence to tell the minister that this is not the way to be done. So all India service scores because of its independence and a general above average ability in managing things. I think it should be preserved. But a similar service in for Tamil Nadu, for example, if these rules are passed, I think Mr. Sircar explained very clearly. Even act is getting passed in 7 minutes, and these are rule amendments, which is an order by the Home Ministry is enough. It will go through, is my guess, and it's not my wish. And state government like Tamil Nadu, I will advise the Chief Minister, go for your own service. Reduce the All India service. And a fellow who will be answerable to the Prime Minister cannot do your tasks. But policies may differ. See, policies of the state government. Our policy is social reform. We want 69% reservation, whereas Government of India is not for it. So, who will the Chief Secretary implement? Whose policy will he implement? And therefore, in due course, it will be done. If our Tamil Nadu Public Service Commission, which is there, is strengthened, is as independent as the UPSC, then we can produce results. If they are not as independent as the UPSC, which they are not now, then again it will be deterioration. So that's the position. And let us not worry about US model, European model and all that. We have our own model, which has been working fairly well. Wherever I meet IAS officers, at least 50% of them are delivering well. They need motivation and training and a little bit of skill development. I entirely agree. But to demolish this cadre of highly intelligent managers available across the country will be very detrimental and it will affect governance. I have answered all the points because I think you have a time limit for finishing this.
Yes, it's already 6.
Yeah, you have a
but I
time
think,
limit, you know.
but if you guys have the time, then I think we can still go ahead. It depends on.
No. In these matters, we can keep on discussing endlessly for hours. I am just saying that's why I want to be brief. I can't answer all the points they are raised. But my feeling is that since the focus of these rules, these rules are detrimental, states in due course. I will advise the Chief Minister, go for your, you say that I don't want IAS. I will not recruit. I will manage with my talent. Nothing will happen, you know, basically. Therefore, this decline of the service will start whether you like it or not. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. PV Ramesh, do you want to go ahead?
No, I think I agree with Mr. Poornalingam Garu. He has said everything that needed to be said about the service. And no, there is a state civil service at the moment. I mean, in every state. The challenge really is, as Mr. Poornalingam said, it is about the way the state selection commission function compared to the Union Public Service Commission. The state public service commissions, the credibility is low, the selection process is opaque, and the training is inadequate. And so obviously 1/3 of the IAS actually cadre comes from the state civil services. So the IAS cadre, as we understand, is really 2/3 is those who are directly recruited through the Union Public Service Commission system. The 1/3 come through the state services. And I'm sure, this could happen that some of the states would start recruiting a much larger number of people and have a better service. There's certainly a case actually for much robust state civil services. There's a strong case for more professional state civil service, but which again is selected based on the principles of merit. It is well trained, and then its management is well organized. I mean, one of the problems in the government is that the cadre management of the state civil service is quite suboptimal, is poorly managed, and that's one of the challenges that need to be addressed. I mean, again, let me say, when I'm speaking, each state has its own subculture, and the civil services actually are very different from, that's one of the reasons why when we talk about the All India services, they're fairly different in terms of the functional culture from state to state. Now, much of it is conditioned by our own experiences. I belong to the Andhra cadre, which included Andhra and Telangana. And so much of my understanding is from these cadres. So again, it's very different from Tamil Nadu or Kerala or West Bengal. So, but the common thread is, of course, I mean, we all belong to in All India service. There's a sense of pride, there's a sense of confidence, and the confidence that comes also with the institutional legacies. But no, I mean, I'm certainly very committed to greater professionalization of civil services and also respect for those professional cadres. Because there's an endless debate, there has been an endless debate about journalists versus professionals. You know, what we are noticing is a large number of engineers are joining, doctors are joining. I'm one of those earlier entrants to the civil service. So it has a much larger pool. But one of the problems also is the further specialization and the further the acquiring skills that are required really in the new context.
Okay, thank you. So, and since you work extensively in the UN, do you think there's anything that we could replicate from these systems? I'm sure.
I think each country and each culture is very, very different. And the way that the US is a federal structure, is very highly decentralized. The local governments are extremely influential, powerful, autonomous. They enjoy a great degree of governance autonomy. So the effectiveness of, so it's very different from different countries. I mean, again, Britain had a civil service which is very similar to us, or the Japanese have a civil service similar to ours. The Chinese civil service perhaps is the oldest and perhaps is the is most well-organized civil service. It's very meritocratic. So I think each country and each context is very different. We can only compare the subcontinental context to what has happened and learned lessons from how the Bangladesh civil service has evolved in the post when the country became independent, the Pakistan civil service, how influenced the army takeover and army rule have had, the Sri Lankan civil service, where induction of the lateral entry and the political induction of the political advisors as secretaries in the system, how it has sort of influenced the overall system. I think these are good lessons to really learn for India and how they really shape the trajectory. But I think what's important is what I feel concerned. I mean, I'm not sure whether the other share, I've just recently retired, so I'm very fresh from the civil service. So I do what I notice very clearly is the declining camaraderie, the collective comradeship, and in a way, shared value system is one I feel concerned about. And the second important thing I feel concerned about is the commitment to the constitutional principles, values, ethics, and rule of law, and the integrity and the competence and ability to speak what is right in the public interest. So that's my limited take on this. Thanks.
Okay. So I think before we end, I think I will just request the Honorable MP to give his opinion on this, and with this we could end the event.
You see, about that specialization thing and whether somebody could come from the arts and humanities and still do well in the IAS, the best reply I can give you is my conversation with one of the best managers in India, Y.S. Deveshwar, who was chairman of ITC for about 15 years, I think. So I asked Deveshwar, who was brilliant student of IIT Delhi, mechanical engineering. So I asked him one day, when is it that you last did mechanical engineering? He scratched his head and said, that's a good question, Jawhar. I think I did my mechanical engineering about 10 years ago when my car broke down. This is an old conversation. And the driver opened the bonnet and he started fiddling around. That's the closest I came to mechanical engineering. So you see, the problem is it doesn't matter what engineering or what other specialized discipline or high discipline you come from. If you qualify through a very tough exam, I don't know how much it is. It's 5 or 7 lakhs appearing in the prelims, and ultimately you choose about 150 or so, or maybe 180. So the number, if you, of course, mistakes happen. I mean, that doesn't mean that mistakes don't get through. Very lucky mistakes and very unlucky for the nation. But having said that, I will still say there's a fair amount of choice and fair amount of training. This rule is the first concerted attack. There have been other attacks in the past where cadre allotment was sought to be done by Mr. Modi himself. You look at your face, look at your color of your your mind, and then decide where you should go. So this is a question of what shall I say, an psychological problem with the gentleman. And it is time that the collective will of the nation was put forward through the elected representatives and through civil society and other those who are interested in public affairs to just tell him bloody no, that's all. That's all. And let's see how far we can do it. If India capitulates in this one, India capitulates in similar ones, it is goodbye to the India we knew. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And sir, finally, what is your opinion on our Honorable Chief Minister, M.K. Stalin?
No, it's doing absolutely fine. We were expecting him to be the first or the second Chief Minister to shoot off the letter. Finally, when he did, the first copy came to me in Tamil. But anyway, there was an English version. So he came forward very straight. I mean, we are all very, what shall I say, look up to the administrative quality of Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu has developed an excellence in administration that I feel other states should look up to. There are various indices on which I'm speaking. There's the question of public health, where it's far ahead. There are many other places where the delivery system has been very good. And it's worth, I mean, I know that other states go to Tamil Nadu to pick up tips on how to govern better.
There is a book called Dravidian Years, which documents how Tamil Nadu has done well as compared to other states in these last 20-30 years. Dravidian Years is the name of the book. I got a soft copy, I can send it to you.
Sir, I shall be very grateful. In fact, this is one thing.
It gives a lot of statistics. What are the reasons why Tamil Nadu developed much faster? Industrial development, education, roads, infrastructure, power. We electrified all villages in 1974. And Bihar, I went about 2-3 years back. He was probably showing how he was doing rural electrification. 2 years or 3 years back, I was there.
No. R.K. Singh, my batchmate and the power minister,
he's claiming credit for it.
keeps saying that we have electrified India this year. We have it's like Kangana.
74, we have done it. I was chairman.
No, sir, I will be very grateful if you can give me the.
I will send you that book. I'll send you that.
And since you'll find my name somewhere, I mean, my email.
I can find you.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
Actually, that book was written by S. Narayan, was supposed to be here today, and we also did an event this morning exactly on that topic.
I think I'm saying the name of the book differently. Okay. Dravidian Years is wrongly I said. This is by Panisabam or somebody who has written a research.
Sir, this book is delivering public service in Tamil Nadu and beyond.
No. I've read both.
I think there are 2 books by this.
I am quoted in Dravidian Years. That book I have. There is another book I have it. I will send it to
this is a Dravidian model by Professor Vijay Bhaskar and Kalayarasan.
That's right.
And
That's
Vijay
a-
Bhaskar
What's
is
the name
now
of
the
book?
member of the State Planning Commission.
Yes,
He's
what's
an
the name of the
economist
book?
from MIDS. It's called the Dravidian model, sir.
Dravidian.
Ah.
Model.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I mixed up both the books.
Yeah. It is a
Dravidian
Cambridge
also is
University Press.
insightful.
Yeah, that's right.
Dravidian years also is insightful. It gives the history sort of thing, why Tamil Nadu did well. He interviewed me
Yeah.
for that book because it's commissioned by Singapore University.
Yeah.
I have then observed all other states, including West Bengal, sir. You should not be a mistake me. I have observed, I have traveled in West Bengal, I have traveled in Bihar, Jharkhand villages. After that, I told them it is only because of the political wisdom in Tamil Nadu we did much better in every aspect of administration. You can prove it in statistics. You can prove it in GDP growth. He has done that. This book gives statistics. Narayanan's book gives historical perspective. The history in which I figure.
I'd be interested in both. I'd be interested in both.
I think
But
you should
one-
read it. Sorry.
One thing I think before you close the session, I must compliment Dharanidharan for bringing us together. But on a larger plane, what we see is a clash of cultures, is a clash of mentalities. I'm not saying that there's a monolithic mentality in the Gangetic Belt. I have worked there, you have worked there. It's not a monolithic mentality, but there is a bit of a myopia prevailing. Myopia prevails in every state, in every city and all that. But when the myopia crosses the red line, it becomes dangerous. So there is a bit of a myopia that is being thrust upon the rest of India. I think it is time for ROI, rest of India, to come together in some sort of an informal understanding to tell the bullies that we are not an appendage to some central territory. We are there in our own right, and this country and this civilization has as much inputs and as much contribution from us as from you. It's a larger historical question. I'm not raising parochial issues. There is no reservation for locals in Bengal. That has never been raised, etc., accepting that the Bengalis think their language, no end of the language. But that's one of the things you have to allow people to think. But apart from that, this sort of a thing is basically, you can see a cultural insensitivity. This cultural insensitivity has to be understood beyond the manifestations that happen every now and then to this order and that stupid decision. It's a cultural manifestation of a monolithic idea, a rather hegemonistic idea that is trying to standardize India, to which we put our collective refusal. That's all. India is not open to standardization and packaging and polypacking. Sorry. We will continue in our own way. We are very much part of India.
Since you are an MP, can I make a suggestion to you? We need an interstate council of such estates, convene meetings so that the ideas are exchanged between the chief ministers, and we stand together in opposing this kind of myopic views.
Yes, we have
possible. And you think about it, it's a political idea. We lay that interstate council for the rest of these people.
Yes.
We discuss, talk, and all these myopic views should be checked. Otherwise, we will lose our secular, independent diversity in unity is what I read long back. Unity,
yes,
diversity.
Absolutely. They are trying to thrust it upon.
Unity is the slogan now. Unity and diversity is what I understood for a very, very long time. So I think, why don't you think of a forum of political leaders by which these things can be put across together, united. That is possible. I am putting this.
We'll have to try. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dharanidharan.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much, Dharan. It's thank you very much. Very grateful.
Very nice. Is there any last word from anybody? I think we should ask the audience, not panelists. Anybody? I think then we will leave. Nobody is saying anything, or anybody saying anything. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Nice meeting all of you. Nice.
Thank you. And all the best to you and to the
Thank you,
organization.
Mr. Ramesh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir.